Okay, this is take 4 on part 2.
Part duh.
Part 2.
Yes, we did part 1 this morning entitled, If Jehovah's Witnesses Could Only Hear What They Are Saying. And so we had some more from this talk, and yes, there is even more coming later on.
And this was a district overseer. What was his name again?
Ellwood Johnson.
Ellwood Johnson.
Yes.
You know, the thing is, you know, with Kim and I having been Jehovah's Witnesses for the larger portions of our life, we'd have been sitting in a Kingdom Hall listening to a talk like this, and we'd have walked out of that Kingdom Hall and said, boy, wasn't that the best talk you've ever heard?
Oh, I love that district overseer.
Yeah, and without really listening to what this guy was saying, you would have thought it was the best talk ever. But now that we're out of the cult and you hear this talk, to me, it's absolutely foreign, especially now that I've, reread the Bible again. And when I look at the scriptures that, any Watchtower speaker gives and see how they load it with conjecture, how they take them out of context, I mean, it's just absolutely a foreign language.
Well, it's like this clip that we're about to play is, the whole thing is conjecture. And it's just unbelievable, what they are saying.
And it's really a shame that, the Jehovah's Witness is going to sit inside this Kingdom Hall or any Kingdom Hall and hear a talk like this and just, literally be lulled to sleep. And we're going to show some things here in just a few minutes.
Yes.
Remember Abel? What did Abel do? The Bible calls him a man of faith. Why? Well, because for one thing, he made a sacrifice to God that had the very essence of what God had in mind. Now, when Jehovah made that statement in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, he made it within the hearing of Adam and Eve. He wanted them to hear Genesis 3:15. He wanted them to hear it. And they got it, they heard it. And as a result, they were able to pass it along to their children. They were able to say things to their children so that they would be aware of what was stated in Genesis 3:15. Now, here's what Abel did. Abel took Genesis 3:15 and he looked at it and he analyzed it. And based on faith, he realized that blood would have to be poured out before any real reconciliation with Jehovah God could occur. Now, how did he figure that out? Cain didn't figure it out.
Okay. Like I said, total conjecture. As stated in Genesis 3:15. Okay. Abel was able to look at it and analyze it.
There was nothing in writing. The Bible didn't exist. There was no Genesis 3:15 in Abel's day.
Yeah, and I know some witnesses are going to be like, okay, you guys are just nitpicking. Okay, well, get your wording correctly. It's like you hear it and then you analyze it and meditate on it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. This would have really been a good opportunity for some serious historical reference work or even some archaeological reference work. In my archaeological Bible, Genesis 4 through 5, there's a little comment down here about the origin of sacrifice is a matter of dispute. The question is, did sacrifice arise from the natural religious instinct of humankind, whether or not guided by the Spirit of God, or did it originate in a distinct divine appointment? Genesis records the first sacrifice by Cain and Abel, but gives no account of the origin of the practice. Now, the custom was clearly approved by God, and in the Mosaic Law it was adopted and elaborately developed. Well, here's the thing about this sacrifice of Cain and Abel. When you listen to this Watchtower Knucklehead, he says Abel figured it out, but Cain did not. When you go to the Mosaic Law, weren't the Israelites supposed to give in offer, in sacrifice to God the first fruits? The first of their fruit, vegetables? Weren't they supposed to give that to God? So it wasn't a matter that Abel had it right and Cain had it wrong. Is we all know that it all had to do with the heart condition. But when you listen to this guy talk and you walk out of the Kingdom Hall, you're walking away saying, see, God doesn't accept a vegetable sacrifice, but yet in the Mosaic Law, God does. And the other thing is that the Bible doesn't state why this sacrifice was made. But you know, if you took some time and read one of the Apocrypha, it's called The Story of Adam and Eve.
The Book of Adam and Eve.
The Book of Adam and Eve. Whether it's true or not, that's not the point. In this particular story, it actually shows that Adam was the one that made the sacrifices at first.
Made the first altar, and he taught his children how to make sacrifices to God.
Now, whether that's a true story or not, we all know that particular writing showed up, late the 2nd or 3rd century. But at the same time, that book does kind of give a little indication of where that first sacrifice may have really started.
Yeah. The biggest thing is we just don't know.
We don't know.
So to do conjecture, and say, oh, well, Abel had it right.
Yeah.
And he was able to look at it and analyze it.
Yeah. Or was it just basic human instinct?
Yeah.
The Bible's completely silent. So to make a statement like this, like Kim said, it's completely conjecture.
Yeah. And we've got another clip coming up next that I have a few things to say about.
Eve didn't figure it out either. Eve was just as dumb as a dodo bird. I'll tell you the reason why. Let's turn back to Genesis chapter 4. I'm not wanting to talk about our mother like this, but this is the fact. Let's turn back to Genesis chapter 4. Here in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. It says, now Adam had intercourse with Eve, his wife, and she became pregnant. In time she gave birth to Cain and said, I have produced a man with the aid of Jehovah. Well, apparently she must have thought that she was that woman in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Must be me. No, dummy, it ain't talking about you. Not you. And to prove it, it wasn't any seed that belonged to Jehovah God, because Cain went off and killed somebody. So Eve got it all wrong, but you know what? Abel got it right because of his faith. He could see, based on the statement of Genesis 3:15, that Jehovah would require a sacrifice that would have blood, and blood would be spilled. Let's go back to Genesis 3:15 to show you how that body of teaching that's in the Bible.
Okay, now I take exception to some of the comments he made here.
You mean the way he mocks? Check the aid of Jehovah.
Oh, I don't want to be making fun of our mother like this, but yeah, then he turns around and he does it. Eve was dumb as a dodo bird, and then there's laughing again, and then he's like calling her a dummy, and it's like, no, dummy,
Because he believes, like Watchtower, that Eve mistakenly thought she was the woman that was going to produce the seed. So they all mock it, right?
Yeah.
So, let's do a little bit of Bible referencing on ourselves. Let's go to Genesis 4, verse 1. Adam lay with his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain, and said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now we all know what happened. Cain and Abel grew up. Cain killed Abel. that seed is dead. Eve got it wrong. But you know what? What Jehovah's Witnesses don't do. Keep in mind, Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to be the most biblically educated people on the face of this earth. Remember, they got all the scholars. They even had that Freddie Franz that, said he knew Greek and he couldn't speak it. But they missed a very simple scripture.
Yeah.
Chapter 4, verse 25. Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son, and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son. He named him Enosh. Now let's go to Luke chapter 3. And if you start at verse 23, you have the lineage of Jesus Christ going all the way back to who? Well, let's see. Verse 37, son of Methuselah, son of Enoch, son of Jared, son of Mahale, the son of Kenan, the son of Enosh, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. Well, wait a minute. That seed did come from Adam and Eve, didn't it? It didn't come through Cain or Abel, but it came through the third child, Seth.
So technically,
she was right.
If that's what she meant, she was right.
Yeah, exactly. But you heard the conjecture on this man's part to totally dismiss that prophecy having anything to do with Adam and Eve. But when you read Luke's account in the lineage of Christ, the lineage of Christ came through Seth, son of Adam, son of God.
So it did come through Adam and Eve.
So it did come from Eve.
Our mother.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then another thing is, this is very degrading to women. And like I keep saying, the Watchtower, the Jehovah's Witnesses are misogynists. They really are downgrading to women. And Eve was an intelligent, perfect woman.
That's a good point. I don't mean to interrupt, but you're right. Remember he called her dumb as a dodo bird?
Yeah.
But this woman was created absolutely perfect. She was not so far removed from creation that she was dumb as a dodo bird. I'll tell you who's dumb as a dodo bird. This idiot giving this talk.
And he even states in there, talking about Eve, it's like, no, dummy, it wasn't about you.
But yet Luke goes all the way back to Adam and Eve, producing the third child, was presumably the third child, the third son.
Hey, Brother Ellwood, you're the dumb as a dodo bird.
Yeah. The most biblically educated people in the world. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They've got it figured out all right.
That whole part was pure conjecture.
Yeah.
Pure conjecture. There's no proof whatsoever.
So we got another part?
I'm sure we do.
Do you see Jehovah's government as having that kind of authority and effect in your life? Now, if we're not at that level, then we need to be fighting to get there, because that's a part of the faith, accepting the reality of the kingdom government.
To our friend Matthew,
who's never been a witness.
Did you hear the first part of this clip? This kingdom is a reality to them. They're living in La La Land. That's why sometimes it's hard to get through to these people, because their reality is not the same as the rest of the world. That's hard to break.
Am I tempted by what this world has to offer and distracted by the anxieties of material desires? Or am I looking to Jehovah, his true worship, and his righteous ways for my happiness? You know what? Remember that faith is the entire body of teaching as expressed by Jesus. Now, Jesus said something that's interesting. I want you to turn to the Sermon on the Mount, because that's a part of that body of teaching that constitutes the faith that was delivered once for all time. Turn to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5. And I want you to see how accepting the teaching can affect us in various ways. That is, fighting for this faith. Because sometimes we forget. Sometimes we forget. We really do. And we need to be reminded. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, here's what Jesus said, who is our exemplar and the one who is the demonstrator of faith. Here's what this faithful man said. He said, happy are those conscious of their spiritual need. Do you buy that? You say you do? Then why do some people who say they buy this will go out and work day and night and even work to the point of deliberately missing meetings so that they can have some jingle in their pockets? Did Jesus say, happy are you if you have a refrigerator full of food? Did he say to you, happy are you if you've got your house note paid up and perhaps paid off? Did he say that? Did he say, happy are you if you have a nice wife or husband? Did he say that? No. He said, happy are you who are conscious of your spiritual need. Now, Jesus was fully aware that people needed something to eat. They needed a place to stay. They needed clothes to wear. They needed association and companionship that would be loving and lovable. He understood the human makeup, but he cut right to the chase and he said, happy are you who are conscious of your spiritual need. Now, you either buy that or you don't. You either exercise full confidence and faith in that or you don't. Materialism is another way of seeking happiness. Now,
hey, Knucklehead, some of us have to take 2 jobs because some of us followed your bullshit back in the 60s, believing that Armageddon was going to come in 75, and we gave up our opportunities for an education so that we could have it easy in this system of things. You see, we're not cult leaders like you are. We don't have 8 million people just throwing money at us.
Green handshakes.
Yeah, we don't wear gold rings. We don't wear gold watches like Tony Morris the turd does. See, some of us have to work 2 jobs. Some of us have to work overtime just to have that little bling in our pocket so that we can pay our freaking electric bill, pay our water bill, put food on the table. See, it isn't handed to us like it is you. Now, Matthew chapter 5. He did read that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those conscious of their spiritual need.
The NIV Bible says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. Blessed are the poor in spirit? You really don't get an idea what Christ is getting at, do you? The complete Jewish Bible, how blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of the heavens is theirs.
Sounds like somebody kind of dejected or depressed or something.
Yeah, but, you know, how is that poor in spirit? I'm going to read it from the contemporary English version because I really like the way this puts it. God blesses those people who depend only on Him. And really, isn't that what Christ was trying to get at? Happy are those who depend only on God. Now, it's really interesting that this man didn't go any further with the Sermon on the Mount.
This elder?
Yes, because remember, Jehovah's Witnesses, they have the true religion, and he sat here mocking Jehovah's Witnesses that have to work extra hours just to make ends meet.
Yeah, working day and night and missing meetings.
Yeah, and missing meetings. When Christ was talking about, happy are those conscious of their spiritual need, we hear things all the time to where if you're at the door and you're talking with a Jehovah Witness and you say, well, I'd like to invite you to my church on Sunday, the Jehovah Witness is going to say, oh, no, I've already found the truth. You've ended your spiritual need right there. You've ended it.
You've shut down your spiritual need.
You've shut down because you think you found the truth. So your search, your depending on God, has ended. That's why it's easy to mislead you the way these cult leaders do when they speak at a talk like this. Okay?
Well, aren't they dependent, instead of on God, aren't they dependent on the governing body now?
That's exactly right. They're dependent on the governing body. Now, let's look at verse 5. And I'm going to read this from the New English, from the NIV Bible. There we go.
International?
Yes. Verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. When Jehovah's Witnesses go from door to door, and I know this to be a fact because I did it for 42 years. When you go from door to door and you knock on that door, you say, good morning, my name is Mike. We're just out here sharing some good news from the Bible with our neighbors. Oh, I'm not interested. And slam that door. You walk back to the car and you mutter under your breath, well, there's another one that's going to die at Armageddon. How is that being meek? You just displayed mentally a superior attitude. That's not Christ-like.
Judging.
You judged, so you are not meek. When you go around telling people, we have the true religion on this earth, that's not meek. That's not humble. Christ says in that same Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Jehovah's Witnesses, the course that you're on right now, all you're going to inherit is eternity of death because you're not meek people. I know your mindset because I was you for 42 years. I know how you think. I know how you operate. I know how you accuse people. I know how you condemn people. For crying out loud, we used to go out in service and say, oh, look at that house. After Armageddon, I'm moving in that house because you've already executed those who do not believe the way you do. That's not meek. You will inherit nothing. Now let's go on. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Watchtower shunning policy. How on God's green earth is that policy merciful?
Well, look at the pedophile and child abuse problem within the organization. How is that showing mercy to the victims and their families?
It's not. There is no mercy in this organization.
Yeah.
Kim and I, when they started coming after us in our little witch hunt, we had a letter asking to change the date because I was going to be out of town. You know what their reply was? Oh, no. This is the date. Be there or else. We had already explained to them was not going to be there.
Oh, yeah, that was real merciful.
How merciful was that? Oh, everybody's busy. This is the date. You be there. That's not mercy.
Our daughter, Shyla, within a short time of us being shunned by our mothers and stuff, they started shunning Shyla and James. How is that merciful, to them? It's like, oh, well, I know how close you are to your parents, so we're assuming that you're gone apostate also.
Yeah.
How is that showing mercy?
So, like the Bible, like Christ said, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, since you go from door to door, spiritually executing the entire world because they don't believe the way you do, guess what's going to happen? You're walking on thin ice When Christ returns, if he returns in our lifetime, and you see it, I would not want to be standing in your shoes, and thank God I was shown mercy and we got out. Simple as that. Another one. Now, verse 8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Pure in heart, there are records, court records right now that are accessible showing for a fact that your governing body members have lied in court. Your elders have lied in court.
And what do? They accuse apostates of going in and forging court documents. How, apostates can do that, I have no idea. All over the world, apostates are going and forging these documents, forging your secret elders book.
Yes. When you can sit there, Jehovah's Witnesses, and lie to yourself and say, oh, this is apostate propaganda, then how are you ever going to be pure in heart? When you can't admit to yourself, hey, maybe this organization is not what it says it is. How are you ever going to see God? Because you're not pure in heart. You have a lie in your heart. That's what Kim and I had to remove from our hearts. We had to remove the lie. And you know what did it, Jehovah's Witnesses? The lie about the cross. If you want to know further, contact us at watchtower.expose, and I'll be more than happy to share that research with you. Okay? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. This whole Watchtower organization is not a peacemaker. They destroy families. They separate husbands and wives. They hide child abuse. They flip-flop doctrines that have killed people. The blood fraction deal. Back in the 60s, they come out with a booklet. Blood, Medicine, and God's Law. In that booklet, it was God's law that you could not take blood fractions because you were breaking God's law. Now, they flip-flop that. Now it's a conscience matter to take blood fractions. Who do you think God's going to hold accountable for all those lives that were lost? Because Watchtower isn't making peace. They're disrupting people. Because if it was God's law back in the early 60s, it would still be God's law today. But because they flip-flop that doctrine, they're not making peace.
Yep. We've got a good clip coming up of this guy, and it's like, he makes me so angry sometimes.
Seeking of materialism as a way of happiness is the truth, and Jesus is a liar, or Jesus told the truth, and the seeking of materialism is a big lie. Which is it? See, what are you willing to fight for? See, Jesus said, happy are you who are conscious of your spiritual need. Others say, happy are you if you got yourself a man. Well, who's telling the truth? See, who's telling the truth here? Do you know that people get this fellowship just so that they can have a man or a woman? Now, apparently to them, Jesus lied, and the idea of having somebody is more about the truth. See, this is what we're talking about, brothers, when we say putting up a hard fight for the faith. Do you honestly believe what Jesus said? And do you buy it lock, stock, and barrel? And are you willing to stake your life on this body of teaching, partly as expressed in the Sermon on the Mount? See, that's what it's all about.
Now here they're laughing, and he's mocking again that you leave, and get this fellowship just to have a man. Why is he always picking on women?
Well, it's because he's a misogynist. Here again, when God created man and woman, what did he say? He blessed them. He says, become fruitful and become many and fill the earth. Remember when Eve had Cain and Abel, or Cain? God has blessed me with a male child. Then she had Seth. God has blessed me with another male child to replace Abel. When Noah came out of the ark, what did God say? Genesis 9, God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. So, despite what this idiot says, there is a lot of happiness in family life. And that's why Jehovah's Witnesses, as a whole, in their family life, are miserable. They're miserable. They're leaving their mates. In fact, I think later in this talk, correct me if I'm wrong, he talks about that how many Jehovah's Witnesses are getting divorced. If they're getting divorced like that, they're not happy. They're miserable people.
Yeah. And what he's actually saying is that you're leaving the truth and going out into the world to find a man. See? And this plays right in with you're going out into the world and marrying a worldly
non-believer
person.
Yeah, so it's just a cult technique. That's all this is.
Yeah. And right at the end of this clip where he says, are you willing to, stake your life on this body of truths? Do you accept it? Lock, stock, and barrel. But are you willing to stake your life on this body of truths? Well, it works the other way. Are we willing to stake our lives that what this guy is saying is absolutely truth? Are we willing to stake our lives on what the governing body is saying?
See?
Works both ways.
The thing is, Jehovah's Witnesses, is when you shut down critical thinking, when you surrender your own thought process to a group of men, they control you.
Yeah.
They will indoctrinate you into what they want you to be. That's what happens when you surrender your own thinking ability. You become part of the Borg. Resistance is futile. You shall be assimilated. Resistance is futile. And that's exactly the way...
Star Trek reference.
That's right. And that's exactly the way I was for a lot of years. That's the way Jehovah's Witnesses are today.
Yeah. Are you willing to stake your life that what Watchtower and the governing body are saying is the truth?
Well, the thing is Jehovah's Witnesses have staked their lives on it because they came to this point in, truth, and boom, they shut it down. I don't need to hear no more. I don't care what truth exists here. I don't care what truth exists here. All I know is that jw.org is the truth.
Oh, and
See?
If you find a little bit of hypocrisy or lies or misquoting or, child abuse problems, they're imperfect men. This is an imperfect organization.
Then they make excuses. You still shut down your thinking is what you did.
Yeah. It never occurred to any of us, would God, who is so holy and perfect, would he have anything to do with an organization that was full of such hypocrisy and lies?
Hey, God already abandoned the Jewish religious system for the same very reasons. See? God let that religious order of things get destroyed.
Something to think about.
Yep.
So,
is that it for this part? Part 2?
Yeah, because there's a lot coming up.
Yeah.
And
remember, this is like a 45-minute talk.
Yeah, a little over an hour. So, we will, I think we'll call it tonight right
Thanks
there.
for watching, and we will
It's dinner time.
Catch up with you in part trace.
Yes. You all have
Thanks for
a
watching.
good evening,
Bye.
and love to all of you.